Is educational institution just another way of saying learning organization? Sometimes. To learn more about the journey from educational institution to learning organization, stay tuned. Hi, I'm Megan Campion, Associate Partner at Education Elements. Welcome back to our new School Rules series. This is the sixth and final video in our series, and this video illustrates the sixth rule, that schools grow when people grow. For more context, please check out the first 5 videos. Over the course of this series, we've spoken with numerous leaders across the country, and in this video, we'll hear from many of the leaders we've learned from throughout the series. These leaders all shared the ways in which the challenges of the year strengthened individual teammates and strengthened teams, proving that schools grow when people grow. In New York, Aviva Kafka and Joe Hawkrider found that their teams started using their time together to share things they were learning, mistakes they had made, and how they could learn from those mistakes.
So what we did is on the professional development days for teachers, teachers selected who they were going to work with, what curriculum they were going to work on, and basically spend the whole day looking at their lessons they already had or creating new lessons. So we would introduce like one kind of strategy that could be used in any K-12 classroom that was a critical thinking strategy. And we'd practice, we'd spend maybe an hour, and the rest of the day was really teacher time. Administrators were there just to support and facilitate. That's how they're going to get better work done.
In the late fall, we bounced around the idea of doing focus groups and working with Education Elements to have a third party come in and meet with parents to walk them through a set of conversations and facilitated conversations about how well are we doing, what successes should we be proud of, and what improvements can we make. And the feedback we've received, has been in line with our thinking in terms of making some mid-course adjustments or what we were anticipating the feedback would be. And that's really important, that we're not surprised, first of all, in that, where we felt we could make improvements, families are reporting that as well. So we're seeing the same things.
In Tennessee and North Carolina, Sam Brooks and Clinton Robinson shared how they systematized the practices in their team meetings to ensure that the time spent together was spent learning.
Bringing you guys in to audit our meetings and really take a look as we started the work as to how we were doing our meetings, the conversation that was going on, and then the outcomes. And so it's funny when you take it down to the teacher level and what we've done over the past 3 years. With them, we were doing the same thing. And that's what the feedback and the surveys that we got from our teachers and our principals along the way were. They love the collaboration time. They love the fact that they did get to communicate across buildings and be able to work with each other and actually make the decisions along the way that was best for their school.
Everybody talks about the norms, right? So when we talk about norms, what are our practices going to be like? What are going to be our expectations? But some of the things that we've done, even with area superintendents, is we created agreements. What are our agreements that we're going to establish with regards to how we're going to do business? How are we going to deal with conflict? How are we going to deal with decision making? How are we going to deal with providing feedback? How are we going to deal with participation? And when we think about participation, we talk about attendance, right? And how are we going to deal with engagement? If you're going to be a part of this team, you can't just be on this team and not share your thoughts or your perspectives. And so we establish those and we create those structures and protocols. And once we establish that of what it's going to be like, then you build that trust.
As individuals and teams' pace of learning picked up, leaders gained insights about how best to build norms and practices that could streamline and scale learning throughout the organization. In Baton Rouge, Emily LeBeau saw an increased awareness of differentiated support.
This has been an incredibly exciting time. I think with all that's happened in 2020, it's also really cool to think about all of the amazing things that have come out of this situation. And I've seen the teams that I work with learn and grow on multiple levels. In terms of the system leaders, if I'm thinking about the team I work on, New Schools for Baton Rouge in particular, and the investment team, it has become very clear that who we support should determine how we support them. In other words, just like in new school rules, it can't be a plug and chug play that's going to be a catch-all net for everyone, because in this particular time, everybody needs something different. And so this manifests itself in the way that we provide supports to like CAOs and CEOs, right? The level that's really responsible for ideating and codifying the vision of the school is going to have different needs from the principal, who's supposed to codify systems and execute those systems to help reach that vision. That's going to be different from the developing leaders within that school who are actually really responsible for executing and maintaining that vision, right? Like they don't have decision-making authority, but they're responsible for answering to the teachers on an everyday. So that means they need to be really strong in relationship building. They need to be really strong in understanding how to navigate tricky situations, change management, as well as how to create psychological safety for the adults that they're working with.
In Hendrick Hudson, teams embraced the opportunities for learning and connected it to the work of the district.
Families have an expectation that they're involved. It's the medium of which they're involved. Like I said, it used to be PTA meetings. I used to host coffees with the superintendent, or parents would have an issue. I'd call them, or they'd come in and meet with me, and we'd be able to problem solve. Some of those systems have been taken away, but the relationships need to remain. And one way to do it was through these focus groups, and met with hundreds of parents that way. We learned a lot about our program. We learned a lot about how we can improve, and that's the business we're in. We're in the business of educating kids, and when we can be educated ourselves, we owe it to the community to hear them out and to make adjustments as necessary.
The teams in Mayfield City leveraged the safety constraints to create targeted learning groups for professional development.
The biggest shift for our work has been we've moved to a really small, more intimate approach to how we've done professional learning with our staff. So we're working with teams of 2 or 3 now virtually, and we're kind of really embedded in their journey now more than ever before. So are the principals, so are teacher leaders. And so that's we call it small ball, versus kind of large PDs. What the exact opposite thing that I would predict has happened. Our principals are more dialed into the instructional leadership than ever before.
As teachers, staff, and administrators learned and grew together, leaders started to notice a shift in the level of ownership and efficacy in all levels of the community. Lori Barron noticed that the adults in her community were modeling the same type of learning behaviors they had cultivated in their students.
We have a much more independent approach right now, which could be negative, but when you take that independent approach with teamwork, it's the perfect mix. And I'll give you an example. My daughter is a junior in high school, and it's been stressful, and much rather her be on campus all the time and have traditional learning, but her model's a little different at her high school. And I've watched her become a much more independent, self-motivated learner. And so I think our staff has done that, and our teachers have done that. There's more self-efficacy. I mean, it started with I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm scared to death, and I have no confidence, even though I've been doing this 15 years. And I think it's transitioned to, hey, you know what? I'm better than I thought I was, and I can do this.
Corby King noticed that the teachers who had been working on building student ownership in their classrooms were the ones that other teachers were looking to for guidance.
When we started with the shutdown back in March, and then throughout the summer, and even now as we've returned with all of the struggles we're having, inevitably the schools are looking to their personalized learning teams and personalized learning facilitators. Those are the teachers that are taking the lead in the schools. Teaching and learning looks so different right now than what it did even a year ago at this time because of COVID. And those teachers who were on the personalized learning teams, honestly, were a little better able to manage some of that.
And Pat Ward and Joe Hawkrider saw the growth over this time as the realization of the potential they had long seen in their districts.
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is, not collaborating about the why anymore. We've spent a lot of time debating the why. We need to get really focused on the how and the results. We have great educators that have done whatever it takes. We know now what they're capable of with the tools we have. Our core belief is built on collaborative networks. The more we can get voices engaged and the more visible we can be as a central office team, we found to be the best way to kind of get moving.
We've got to find the right balance in education between high tech and high touch. And I think that's going to be a conversation we're going to have for a long time about what the right balance is. I wasn't sure that public education could respond this well, because we are historically one of the most archaic businesses. Our business is really a museum. Walk into our schools, they're a museum and a testament, to the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But it took a pandemic to rip that Band-Aid off, and it's exciting. And I think there are a lot of strategies and a lot of things we learned that should be part of what version 2.0 of public school looks like.
The transition from educational institution to learning organization has begun in many schools and districts across the country, and confirmed that schools grow when people grow. This is the final video in our series. If this is the first time you're tuning in, please watch the previous 5 videos. Visit our website for more organizational leadership content and follow us on Twitter for content updates. Check out the description for all these links and more. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching.